Welcome back, students. In the previous video, we learned about the location, extent, and the various nuclei of the hypothalamus. In this video, we are going to learn about the connections and functions of the hypothalamus. I will tell you in short the afferent and efferent connections of the hypothalamus, and then will tell you some of the important functions of the hypothalamus. If we go to the next slide, we will see that if we go to this afferent connections of hypothalamus, I will just tell you the various broad afferent functions of the hypothalamus, because there are a lot of the connection of the hypothalamus. Okay, and the first connection which we will learn is the from the spinal cord, the connection of the hypothalamus with the spinal cord, okay, which are bringing the impulses from the various regions of the spinal cord. Second, from the brain stem, that is the medulla, pons, and the midbrain, where there are the various important cranial non-nucleus, both motor and sensory, are located. Then we will learn its connection with the nuclei, which are grouped as the subthalamic nuclei. And then we will learn its connection with the retina to that of the nucleus suprachiasmatic of the hypothalamus. Then this hypothalamus is also connected with the hippocampus. Okay, so the hippocampal formation, part of the limbic system, we will learn also this afferent connection. In a diagram, I will show you very broadly, very superficially. And similarly from the amygdaloid nucleus. Okay, and lastly, I will tell you its connection with that of the thalamus. Okay, so in the next slide I'm going to tell you, with the help of the diagram, some of the connection, not all these 7 connection, but some of the connection can be shown in the next diagram, which I am going to show you. Now this is the diagram which is showing the afferent connections of the hypothalamus. Let us see the first afferent connection, which I said was with that of the spinal cord. And this spinal cord will send the impulses from the, will bring the impulses which is coming from the viscera. That means definitely it is the sensory impulses coming from the viscera, okay, through the fibers. Okay, that means through the ascending tracts, okay, from the dorsal root ganglion to the dorsal horn cell, and then it will ascend. Okay, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic part of these sensory impulses coming from the spinal cord. But not only the autonomic sensation they come to the hypothalamus, they also are brought from the somatic sensation. The somatic sensation they will also come, and mainly this somatic sensation and this visceral sensation, they are brought to the hypothalamus through the reticular formation in the brain stem. Okay, and this sensation or these afferent fibers then ultimately terminate into the lateral group of the hypothalamic nuclei. Okay, so lateral hypothalamic nuclei mainly. So these are the spinal cord connection with the hypothalamus, and these are the sensation coming from both autonomic as well as somatic via the reticular formation. Okay, via the reticular. Okay, then we come to the second kind of the afferent fibers, which are coming from the brain stem, that is from medulla, pons, and the midbrain. And as we know that there are plenty of the autonomic nuclei, that is the parasympathetic and sympathetic nuclei, not sympathetic, parasympathetic nuclei are located in the brain stem, and similarly these nuclei send the sensation to that of the hypothalamus. Similarly, the taste sensation is also brought to the hypothalamus through the collaterals. Okay, and this is through the solitary tract collaterals. Then all these are brought through the medial forebrain bundles. Okay, medial, you can see here This is the medial forebrain bundle, which are showing both afferent and efferent connection, but here we just concentrate on to the afferent connections. Okay, and this is also brought to the lateral zone of the nuclei. Okay, the medial zone nuclei, and then deep to the anterior column of fornix and to the mammillothalamic tract there was the lateral zone, we have learned in the last video. Okay, so to this lateral zone nuclei, these fibers from the brain stem through medial forebrain bundle, they are going. Okay, they are going. Now then we will also learn about the connection with that of the subthalamic nucleus. Not shown in this diagram, the subthalamic nuclear connections are there. Okay, and these nuclei are connected to the hypothalamus, and then from hypothalamus this subthalamic nucleus will be sending the fibers to the thalamus. Now then, it is the retina, connection from retina, and the fibers from retina, they come through the optic tract and say optic nerve and the optic chiasma, optic tract, and then they ultimately turn say end into the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is not shown here. The suprachiasmatic, just above the optic chiasma, in that of the medial zone nucleus. So it will end into the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So it is the information coming to the hypothalamus onto the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Okay, then the fibers are coming from hippocampus. Okay, see this in this diagram, this is hippocampal in the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. Okay, so this is that hippocampus, and these fibers, afferent fibers, see this arrow, they are coming through the fornix. This is the fornix in which this fiber is lying, and then this will go to that of the lateral nucleus, this will go to the mammillary body, then to the posterior nucleus. So to the multiple hypothalamic nucleus these fibers will go, but its main connection is with that of the mammillary nucleus. Okay, and this is the part of the limbic system. Okay, limbic system. And in the efferent connection, in the next slide we will see that the fibers which will arise from this mammillary body, they will go to the anterior nucleus of thalamus and cingulate gyrus. Okay, that I will tell you in the next slide. Okay, so this is the connection with the hippocampus, which is the part of the limbic system through the fornix. Then the fibers are also coming from amygdaloid nucleus. Okay, this is the complex of the amygdaloid nuclei, and these fibers, afferent fibers, they run into a bundle which is called as the stria terminalis. See this stria terminalis fibers, they are coming here, and then they will go and end into that of the preoptic and the anterior nucleus. This is the preoptic nucleus, this is preoptic, and here is the location of the anterior nucleus. So it will go to the preoptic and to that of the anterior nucleus. So these are the fibers coming from, afferent fibers coming from the amygdaloid complex. And lastly, we will learn the connection of the hypothalamus with that of the thalamus. Okay, and this is coming, say the fibers from the thalamus are coming from the anterior nucleus. We had seen that the anterior, the thalamus is divided into three parts: anterior nucleus, medial nucleus, and lateral nucleus. So anterior nucleus fibers are coming from anterior nucleus, from that of the midline nucleus, and that of the medial dorsal nucleus. Okay, medial dorsal and midline nucleus, and this nuclei, they go send the afferent fibers to that of the hypothalamus, to the various parts of the hypothalamus. These are the only broad afferent connection of the hypothalamus. Okay, and I will summarize once again this connection, afferent connection. Let us go to the next slide, which will show you the efferent connections of hypothalamus. If we just in a broad term, if we will see this efferent connection, the efferent connection, they will go to the hippocampal formation from where it was getting through fornix. So it will go to the hippocampal formation. This will also, efferent fibers will again go to the amygdaloid nuclear complex from where it was getting afferent fibers, again to the thalamus, okay, from where it was getting the afferent, and to the tegmentum of the midbrain, and to the pons where the various nuclei are located. And then lastly we will learn in some detail about its connection with that of the pituitary gland. Okay, so the efferent fibers are almost going to the same places from where it was receiving the afferent connection. Please go on noting it because it is not that easy. So this diagram shows the different connections of the hypothalamus, okay, and some of the major connections are shown in this diagram, not the all connections are shown in this diagram. So let us see which are those major connection, efferent connection. We are talking of the efferent connections. That means they are starting, fibers are starting from hypothalamus and they are going towards the different parts of the brain. Let us come to the first efferent fibers which start, which are hippocampal formation, going to the hippocampal formation. And these fibers, they start from the lateral nucleus, okay, which is a large nucleus in the lateral zone, okay, deep to those anterior, anterior horn, the anterior limb of the fornix, okay, anterior, I'm just forgetting, I'm old man now, anterior fornix, okay, fibers coming from the fornix to the mammillary body and then the mammillothalamic tract, which are, okay, that is the column of the fornix, I'm sorry, I started forgetting, column of the fornix and the mammillothalamic tract, okay. Deep to this is the lateral nucleus, a large lateral nucleus is present, okay, and the other lateral nuclei, that means the nuclei of the lateral zone, and they will send the fibers via the medial forebrain bundle, okay, medial. So this is the efferent fibers going to the hippocampal formation. It is going to the hippocampal formation and then to the amygdaloid nucleus, okay, to the not shown in this diagram, amygdaloid nucleus complex. So the fibers, they go via the same stria terminalis, okay, the medium through which it was receiving, okay. It was from the amygdaloid, it was coming through the stria terminalis. The same stria terminalis will carry the amygdaloid complex fibers, okay. Then the third efferent connections which will go is from the thalamus, okay. Efferent will go to the thalamus. As I said that the thalamus was sending fibers from anterior nucleus of thalamus, from midline nucleus and the medial dorsal nucleus of the thalamus, and these fibers, they will go back to the thalamus and also to the tegmentum. So this will form the two different bundles excuse me, this will form the two different bundles from the mammillary nucleus, okay, through the mammillothalamic tract. That means from mammillary nucleus these fibers will arise and will go through the mammillothalamic tract to that of the anterior nucleus of the thalamus. See, this region is thalamus, okay, this region. Here is the subthalamic sulcus, okay, this, and below that is the thalamus, and this is the mammillary body. And we have seen that from the mammillary body, the efferent fibers of the hypothalamus, they will go into two bundles. One is the mammillothalamic tract. See this mammillothalamic tract from mammillary body, and from where the mammillary body was receiving, it was receiving from the anterior column of the fornix, from hippocampus, okay, which was the part of the limbic system. Now these fibers from mammillary body will ascend up in mammillothalamic tract and end into the anterior nucleus of thalamus, efferent fibers. And from anterior nucleus of thalamus, then these fibers will project into the cingulate gyrus, okay, on the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere, okay. This is also the midline section or sagittal section, and this is the cingulate gyrus is here, okay. efferent fibers going to this. Then the second component of the fibers, efferent fibers arising from the mammillary, is called as the mammallotegmental tract. This is from mammillary body going to the tegmentum of the midbrain here. So this is called as mammallotegmental tract, okay, and it will go to the various nuclei. Now after this, okay, that is the different connections of the thalamus and to the tegmentum here, which is coming from mammillary body to the tegmental area where various nuclei are present into the midbrain. Okay, let us come to the fourth efferent connection, okay, and this fourth efferent connection is efferent to the autonomic motor neuron. And now this efferent from autonomic motor neurons, they will go to the brainstem where the parasympathetic autonomic nuclei are located, and then it will go to the spinal cord where the sympathetic and parasympathetic centers are located. Okay, we will see just now. And these fibers, they will go through the medial forebrain bundle. All this bundle, okay, this will be the medial as forebrain bundle. It is represented here only by a single coming from the hypothalamic nuclei, various hypothalamic nuclei, and this is medial forebrain bundle, which was also containing the afferent fibers as we have seen in the afferent connection. This is also the efferent connection in the medial forebrain bundle, and this will end into the various autonomic nucleus. Let us see what are those autonomic nucleus mainly where these fibers, efferent fibers will end. They will end to the nucleus ambiguous, which is a motor nucleus for the muscles of the head and neck, okay, which derive from the branchial arches. Okay, so it will go to the nucleus ambiguous. This will go to a parasympathetic motor nucleus, that is the dorsal nucleus of the vagus. Okay, these fibers from medial forebrain bundle will go to the dorsal nucleus of vagus, and then this will also go to a solitary tract nucleus, okay, though it is a sensory nucleus, which brings the sensory taste of this, I mean say sensation of the taste. Okay, so that nucleus will also be innervated by the efferent fibers coming from the hypothalamic nuclei. Let us see where these efferent autonomic fibers from hypothalamus will go to the spinal cord. As we know that in the spinal cord there are sympathetic preganglionic neurons are located between the spinal segment T1 to L2, okay, preganglionic sympathetic in the lateral horn of the gray matter of spinal cord. Similarly, in the lateral horn of the gray matter of spinal segment from S to S4, the parasympathetic fibers are also located. Okay, so it will supply to those both sympathetic as well as to that of the parasympathetic. And lastly, we will come to its efferent to the pituitary gland, and we will see that this paraventricular nucleus and the supraoptic nucleus, they will produce the two different kind of hormone, that is oxytocin and the vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone, which will be released through the posterior pituitary in the circulation. Okay, similarly in the infundibular nuclei, which are present in the infundibular part or tuberal nucleus, sorry, they will produce the releasing factor or release inhibiting factor, and this will be carried through the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system, and then this will, I mean to say, control the secretion of the anterior pituitary gland. Okay, that I am going to tell you in detail in the next slide. Okay, so these are the efferent connection of the hypothalamus. I know that it is difficult to remember. Just draw the diagram and try to understand these efferent connection of the hypothalamus. I'm moving to the next slide, and this next slide I will just tell you the functions of individual nucleus which we have learned in the last video. There I have also told you, but it will be a sort of revision so that you will understand the basic functions of the hypothalamic nucleus. Here individual nucleus function are given. Okay, the preoptic nucleus, see here, this is the preoptic which is present in both. This is the medial zone nucleus, that means which are superficial to anterior column of fornix, and the mammillothalamic tract. Okay, so they are, all these nuclei are superficial, but this preoptic is also present in the lateral zone which is deep to this anterior column of the fornix. So this is the preoptic nucleus. It regulates the release of gonadotropic hormones which controls the gonads. In case of male, the testes, and in case of female, the ovaries. So gonadotropic hormones are secreted by the preoptic nucleus, and suprachiasmatic nucleus is just above the optic chiasma, where this, let me put the, I mean to say the cursor. This is that suprachiasmatic nucleus, okay? And this suprachiasmatic nucleus, it regulates the circadian rhythm or the biological clock, okay? Our, I mean say, activity during the day and night, okay? That is called a circadian rhythm, okay? At particular time you feel hungry, at particular time you want to go to sleep, you feel sleepy, right? And at particular time you get up, okay? You get up. So that is all regulated by this suprachiasmatic nucleus, okay? Then paraventricular nucleus, this elongated nucleus here is paraventricular, and it secretes the oxytocin which will be secreted through the posterior pituitary. And then there is a very small dot like structure here, see, just deep to the paraventricular nucleus here, I would say inferior to the paraventricular nucleus, and it secretes the, I mean to say, anterior nucleus. This is called as, and it acts as a temperature regulator and center for the thrust. It will regulate the temperature of the body and center for the thrust, okay? That is the anterior, very small anterior nucleus. Then there is a supraoptic nucleus which is in the deeper, okay, in the lateral zone, the lower diagram here. And this is the lower diagram, is showing the supraoptic nucleus. And as I said in last slide also, supraoptic nucleus secretes the antidiuretic hormones ADH, okay, or vasopressin, and it regulates the water loss from the kidney, okay? So it don't allow the kidney to, I mean to say, secrete much of the water, okay? It retain the water, okay? That's why it is called as antidiuretic hormone. Then there is a dorsomedial and dorsoventral nuclei here in the medial zone, in the upper diagram. Dorsomedial and the I mean to say the ventromedial and the dorsomedial. This is the dorsomedial, and this is, which is placed more towards ventral side, is the ventromedial, because it is, they are in the medial zone, okay? And they contain the rage and the emotion by dorsomedial, okay? And the ventromedial suppresses the hunger, that is satiety. You always feel I mean to say full stomach, okay? That is satiety. That means you don't want to eat further, okay? If you are eating, you don't, that means you are done with the food, okay? Now then, infundibular stalk, this is that infundibulum, just at the site of the attachment of the infundibular stalk here in the median eminence, okay? This is the infundibular nucleus, and it regulates the anterior pituitary, as we will see in the next slide. Anterior pituitary by secreting the releasing and the release inhibiting factors, okay? Releasing and release inhibiting factors, which will control ultimately the secretion from the anterior pituitary. Now the posterior nucleus, okay, this nucleus here in the medial zone, this posterior nucleus controls the cardiovascular functions. And the mammillary nucleus here, which is present in mammillary body, this act as a relay station between the limbic system. I said that it will get the fibers through this anterior column of the fornix, which will end here, which is coming from hippocampal formation, and then from here the fibers will arise which will go to the mammillothalamic tract to the anterior nucleus of thalamus. Okay, and this nucleus is involved in the, beside this limbic system, it is involved in the retention of the memory or memory processing. Okay, the lateral nucleus, this large in the lateral zone, lower diagram, this large nucleus induces the eating. That means you feel hungry because of this nucleus, and this is also regulate the wakeful state, which is also regulated by tuberomammillary nucleus. Here is the tuberomammillary nucleus, and in the lateral zone, this tuberomammillary nucleus will active in the wakeful state. It will remain active in the wakeful. So this was in short the function of each and every nucleus which seen in the medial zone and that of the lateral zone. Quickly I will just again tell you about the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Let us understand what is hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Now this is a capillary plexus which is called as primary capillary plexus. One of its end is the arterial end, another is the venous end, and this is present, the primary capillary plexus is present in the median eminence where there is the presence of the infundibular nucleus. Okay, tuberal and infundibular nucleus. Now this venous the vein, venule, which is formed at the venous end of the capillary plexus, then passes through the infundibular stalk, and then it jumps to that of the anterior pituitary where it forms the second capillary plexus. Okay, that means once the capillary plexus becomes the venule, once again it breaks up into a plexus, but it is containing only the venous blood. Okay, that's why it is shown in the blue color. Here the red and blue both are shown. Okay, so it is once again it breaks down, and then it will form another venule which will go out. Okay, now the the vein between the two plexus, primary and secondary, they are known as the portal vein, and it is called as hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system because one of the capillary plexus, that is primary, it is in the hypothalamus because this is at the third median eminence, which is the part of the hypothalamus at the floor of the third ventricle. So it is in hypothalamus, and secondary plexus is in the hypophysis cerebri, that is the pituitary gland. So it is called as hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. The function of this is that whatsoever secretion comes out from those infundibular nucleus, which is two type of secretion comes. One is the secretion which stimulate the hormone. Okay, that is stimulating hormones, and that of the inhibiting hormones. Okay, or releasing hormones, which will, when secrete from the infundibular nucleus, it will stimulate the anterior pituitary gland cell, which are acidophil and basophil cells, and they secrete different types of the anterior pituitary hormone, so that particular hormone will be produced and released into the circulation. But when releasing inhibiting hormones are secreted, okay, which is ultimately regulated by the feedback mechanism depending on the concentration of particular hormone in the blood. If it is more, then release inhibiting hormone will be secreted through this infundibular nucleus, and then this will suppress the secretion of that particular hormone from the cells of the anterior pituitary gland. Okay, I hope that you have understood. That means here the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain, is connected and controlling the endocrines. Okay, release of the endocrine hormones. So this is a connection between the brain and the endocrine system. That is a nervous system and the endocrine system. They are very nicely connected here. Okay, and ultimately thus the brain is connecting through the chemical release through the blood vessels okay, through the medium of the capillary, that is the portal vein, and ultimately that is control. Okay, that is various cells are controlled. Now students, don't think that this is only one plexus which is present. There are multiple hundreds of plexus are present into the hypothalamus, in the infundibular, I mean say nucleus, in the median eminence, and also into the anterior pituitary. Lot of sinusoids and capillaries, they are there. And then the hormone which will be secreted by the anterior pituitary, they will be poured in the secondary capillary plexus, and it will circulate in the whole body. Okay, so this is hypothalamo-hypophyseal system. That means hypothalamus thus is connected to the anterior pituitary gland. And lastly, this is the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. That was the portal vein. Here it is tract. That means two different nuclei which we have learned in the last video also, that is supraoptic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus. The supraopticular optic nucleus, which is in the lateral zone, they produce the antidiuretic hormone, and the paraventricular nucleus, it produces the oxytocin. Now this is quite, I mean to say, surprising for you people, is that how a neuron is secreting the hormones oxytocin and antidiuretic, because neurons are concerned with the impulse production and its propagation through its axons. Okay, but here neurons have modified themselves. Okay, this in only in these two group of nuclei, paraventricular and supraoptic, into the endocrine functions. They secrete the endocrine secretion. Okay, hormones are secreted by the neurons, so they are neuroendocrine cells. Okay, they are neuroendocrine cells, and this the oxytocin and this the antidiuretic hormone, then through the axons of this neuron, which are in thousands number, they come through the infundibular stalk, and ultimately they end here into the posterior pituitary. At the end of these axons which are branching, okay, there is the at the end these hormones are collected at the tip of these axons, okay, which are branch axon. And these hormones are, whenever the need arises, then these hormones are secreted into the capillary plexus or sinusoids. Okay, and then it is taken to the target cells by that of the blood vascular system. So this the end where it is collected, that is called as the Herring's body, which can be seen in the slide of the posterior pituitary gland. Okay, so there is nothing in the posterior pituitary, I mean say, sorry, there is no production of any hormone, just similar to that of the, I mean to say, and in contrast to that of the anterior pituitary, which produce so many hormones. Posterior pituitary is not producing any hormone. These hormones are coming from the paraventricular and supraoptic nuclei. Okay, only it gets collected here in the posterior pituitary. Okay, posterior pituitary. Now the supraoptic antidiuretic hormone, which acts on kidney to retain the water, that's why it is called antidiuretic. And if the oxytocin, this act on the smooth muscle and helps in the during the childbirth, where the powerful contraction is needed of the uterine musculature. So smooth muscle, they contract very vigorously during the childbirth. Then, and if the contraction is weak, the oxytocin injection is given. Okay, this oxytocin, very in the mild way, it also acts on to the nipple when the child is sucking the milk through the nipple, so the nipple get erected because it also contains the smooth muscle. Okay, passing to the next slide. And in this next slide, the functions of the hypothalamus are summarized. It controls the autonomic function. So what is the main function of the hypo? Because it is the head ganglion of the autonomic nervous system. Both the sympathetic and parasympathetic activities are controlled by the autonomic. Sympathetic activity is controlled by the lateral nucleus, which is located in the lateral zone, that large nucleus extending from area number 2 to area number 4. and the posterior nucleus, which is in the medial zone. Okay, it is. So these two nuclei are sympathetic in nature, while parasympathetic activity is controlled by the anterior nucleus, which was very small, and that of the preoptic nucleus, just close to the lamina terminalis, okay, which was there. They are controlling the parasympathetic activity. Now the second important function of the hypothalamus is to control the food and water intake. That means your hunger, your satiety, they are controlled by the hypothalamus. The lateral zone of the nuclei, they will just control your hunger. I mean, say they are responsible for the sensation of hunger and satiety by the ventromedial nucleus, okay, by ventromedial in the medial zone, okay. And water intake is ultimately regulated by the supraoptic nucleus. It is sorry for this phone call. Okay, the this nucleus, that means where I was, okay, I was talking about the water intake. The supraoptic nucleus, which produces the antidiuretic hormone, was ultimately control the water intake. So the food and water intake is controlled by this hypothalamus. Control of the emotion and behavior, fear, anxiety, anger, aggression, pleasure, okay, and contentment. They are the emotional, I mean to say, components of a person, and they are controlled by the hypothalamus. Similarly, the sexual drive, the desire to have the sex, okay, and copulation and orgasm, they are ultimately controlled by the this hypothalamus, okay, hypothalamus. And this another function of the hypothalamus to create the new memory, as we have seen that from hippocampus, which creates the new memory, hippocampus limbic system, and then it comes to the mammillary body through the anterior column of the fornix, and then this is in the pathway of the hippocampo-thalamic tract, where ultimately the new memory is created, okay, new memory is created. Let us see here the two functions, food and water intake and control of emotion, including the behavior and sexual drives. These are necessary, okay. The once the animal gets the food and water, then some emotions arises in him. He has a desire for the sex, and then he has also a desire to propagate his species, his children's, and then he just have through its emotion, he protect his children very well. All animals from including the human beings, okay, they are very protective. Why they are very protective? Because they want to, I mean to say, preserve their species. Unknowingly they are preserving their species, okay. Now the functions of the hypothalamus, other functions are regulate the body temperature, we have already learned, and it is the link between the nervous and endocrine, neuroendocrine pathway, from that of the, I mean to say, hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary, that is neuroendocrine pathways, okay. Then it secretes the hormone, that is supraoptic and the paraventricular nucleus, oxytocin and the ADH hormone, okay. Then controls the circadian rhythm, okay, day and night cycle, which is controlled by the hypothalamus. It regulates the sleep and the wakeful state. Ultimately there are so many functions of the hypothalamus, and they are of different varieties functions. So it is one of the important, I mean to say, head ganglion or the major ganglion of the autonomic nervous system also. I hope that I have covered almost all the parts in the two videos of that of the hypothalamus. Thank you very much for watching this video.